Okay, so in this video, I'm just going to go through some things about Newbridge and the Curragh. Okay, we're going to start at the school, and you'll see this blue sign. That's not the front of the school, and a lot of them are around Newbridge on buildings that would be, say, historically significant. So it says in this, British brothers came to Newbridge in 1939 to run the local primary school, then called St. Conlet's Boys' School. The present school, built in 1914, was extended in 1965 and again in 1979. And again in 2011, I think the new part, Mr. Maloney's and Miss Brannigan's building classrooms were built. So look out for those blue signs as you're walking around the town. And then as you head to the boardwalk, you'll see the monastery. Now the monastery used to be built right here, basically at where the gate is now. It used to be the old monastery, but this monastery was built in about the 1960s. And just very recently it has been put up for sale. So the brothers no longer live there. Then we come to the park, and it's called Bad Lipspring Away. Now that's because Bad Lipspring is a town in Germany in which Newbridge is twinned with. And we're also twinned with a town called Ocala in Florida. And there's this sign right in behind it, and it tells you about the bridge, St. Conlet's Bridge. And the present bridge was built in 2006. And the boardwalk was added. So you won't remember the old bridge, but your parents might. And I certainly do when I was going to school. And there's a statue of this swan, and if you see down here, it gives the name of the swan. The swan is called Uncussentor. Uncussentor means the defender. So you can see the swan has her wings spread out. So this could probably be an adult swan and doing that to protect her young. So she makes herself as big as she can to try and frighten away anyone who might come and attack her young. So she is Uncussentor. If you came across to the island, the traffic island between the boardwalk and the library, you would see a sign called Slína Sláinte, and you'll see them around the town, and that means the way of health. So basically, if you want to be healthy, there's a few routes marked around the town that you could follow. Slína Sláinte. Now this building that's on the corner beside the library, this used to be an old secondary school in the town. So this was what was known as the technical school, and now it's the head of the libraries in the county. But it used to be a secondary school. And on the wall there you'll see a blue plaque, so you could read that when you go by. Then if you walk down by the river, down through the park, you come to this area, and this is known as the watering gates. And years ago, when the British Army were in the town, they would bring their horses down here and the horses would drink from here. That's why it's called the watering gates. And if you stand at the watering gates and look out at the water, you see the water is very smooth up on the right hand side, but then there's a layer of rocks, or a line of rocks here. And then the water gets broken over the rocks. So this is called a weir, W-E-I-R. And then if you made your way up the road and you came towards the top, so outside Royston, outside the Pitch and Puck Club and the Boxing Club, you'll see this sign on the left hand side. So this is where kind of the footpath ends. And when I was young, there used to be steps up from the park, from the footpath in the park right up to this footpath. So some very steep steps. Now, they're no longer there, and I'd say they were probably taken away because they were probably a bit too steep to be safe. But when we used to walk home from school, we used to walk down through the park and we'd come up these steps. So the steps used to come out somewhere around here. And across the road then, from the park side of the road, up the hill, you'd see this old wall, and you see this really runs the length of across the top of the hill and down to the water tower. And you see these little holes in it, these little slits in the wall. That's because this used to be the wall of the British Army barracks. So these little holes would have been so people could maybe shoot out, possibly, and not that bullets wouldn't go in. So you'd often see these little kind of holes on old castles. But all this old wall was the outside edge of the British Army barracks. Now inside that today is the GA grounds and Bord na Móna. Then just a few steps up, you'll see that this used to be the old entranceway to the British Army barracks. And you see the blue plaque just to the right here. You can't see it in the picture here. And these used to be two doorways in. And inside, behind that then is the GA ground. And the reason the GA ground was put there is because it used to be the old British Army parade ground. So the British Army would march around that and parade around that. So it was a very flat piece of ground. So when they left, then they decided this was a nice flat piece of ground, so they could use it for a football pitch. And they used to let people into the pitch through these doors. I can remember when they used to do that, but they don't do it anymore. And you can see that this plaque is just beside that gate on the wall. And as you come up towards the Whitewater, you'll see this wall here. So this is where Bordnamona is in there now. But that's all old, the old British Army wall. And then you come up to the old water tower. So what would happen is this is basically a big tank of water up the top. And the rain would come in, and this would supply water to the factories in the town, and also maybe to some of the houses in the town. And beside that then there's this really old, this is the Whitewater here, but there's this really old office building. So it looks kind of ugly, and I don't think it's used anymore. All the windows are broken. But I can remember when the Whitewater was being made, there was a rumour anyway, or what they call an urban myth, that a part of a crane fell off and fell through the roof of this building. Now I don't think it's true, but that was the story at the time. Now I've showed this picture before, but here's the water tower. So this is Newbridge in the 60s, and you would come up. This would be the road out to Liffey Hall and to the graveyard. So there's the water tower. So that's Cutlery Lane down there. And you come up a bit more. All this factory. This is all the Irish Ropes factory, huge big factory. But you'd come down and you turn right. You couldn't go straight on here. So you turn right and come down here. And this will come out at what today is Judge Roy Beans, which is out there. It used to be called the Grand Hotel. So there used to be a time you come down here, so this is a turn up into the cinema and the Whitewater, and there was no road beyond this. There was nothing here. So the road would turn down here, you'd end up coming out at Judge Roy Beans. And that's another picture. There's the water tower, Cutlery Lane, and then that road down there. And like I said last time, you pointed out, it's just there's hay in the fields there. And that's all built on today. Those fields are no longer there. And if you go to the graveyard, if you come into the graveyard and if you look over, see this grave over here? That grave is a grave for all the people from Newbridge who served in the Great War, who died in the Great War, which is the First World War. So then if we turn out by Walsh's Town, Abbey and Manor, I think that's the name of the estates, and we come out to the Curragh, and you'll see this is an old graveyard, and again this is a British Army graveyard. So there's no longer people buried in there. But you could go in there, you can still walk in, you can look at the headstones and so on. And quite near that there's this. Now this is for years ago when they're putting horses into trailers, they might back the trailer up to this or back the truck up to this, and the horse would walk up this. This was a kind of a ramp. And then we come out to Donnelly's Hollow, and in Donnelly's Hollow there's this is called an obelisk. This is a kind of a monument because there was a famous boxing match there between a man called Dan Donnelly, who we see over here, and an Englishman called Henry Cooper. And Dan Donnelly won that match. And apparently this is his arm. His arm apparently used to be in a pub in Kilcullen for years. Now no one's sure if it really is his arm or not, but that's apparently the story. And then behind the obelisk, going up the hill, you see these holes. These are meant to be Dan Donnelly's footsteps. And after the match, he was meant to have carried Henry Cooper up here. And he was such a big man that he left these footprints on the Curragh. From Donnelly's Hollow then, if you go down what they call the Hollow Road, you come to this sign and this little sentry's hut. So sometimes if the army are training out here, there'll be an army man in here and he won't let you go down that road. But if you go down that road and look up to the left, you'll see this big hill up here, and they're known as the Pyramids, and they were created by the army. They would put up their target practice in front of these hills, so if any bullets missed the targets, they would get stuck into the hills or into these pyramids. Now they no longer do that anymore, but they used to do it years ago, and you can walk along the top of this. And if you look up to the right, then there's this hill with all these trees up on top of it, and this is called Braveheart Hill. And the reason it's called Braveheart Hill is because there was a film called Braveheart, and it was shot out there. And this man was the star, Mel Gibson. And here he is talking to a lot of people who were extras. And a lot of those people were in the army, or they might have been from Newbridge. And one of the famous scenes was shot on Braveheart Hill. And that's looking across at the pyramids again. And then back up the other end of the Curragh, near the motorway, is this statue of Fion Mccool and his hounds. And Fion Mccool, who was leader of the Fion, who were a group of ancient warriors. And he used to hunt on the Curragh, and he used to have his headquarters, I suppose, out with the Hill of Allen. And then as you come back into Newbridge, on the main road, you'll pass Ballymanny Stud. And one of the most famous things that happened at Ballymanny Stud was there was a racehorse, Curragh, who was the best racehorse of the day, and Curragh was kidnapped from Ballymanny Stud in the 1980s and was never found again. Now they think that he was kidnapped by the IRA and that they were going to demand a ransom for Curragh's return, but they think that maybe the horse started kicking people or whatever. They couldn't control the horse and they think that they shot him. So no one knows what happened to Curragh, but that's where he was taken from one night. And then we come back down through the town to the park, and there's some swans. Back to the school. And that's a few things about Newbridge and the Curragh.